G'day, Ben here. How you going? And welcome to today's live video where we're going to talk about how to use webinars to generate leads in 2022. Now, there's no doubt that you would have realized that, the last couple of years has forced a lot of people to do more online than ever before when it comes to presentations and meetings and webinars, is something that I was doing long before this pandemic hit and we needed to move business online. Why? Because webinars have always worked, but now they work even a bit better. And the reason I think that is because so many people are comfortable sitting online, watching a meeting or a free training, and it's a way for you to be able to reach more people in more geographic areas much quicker. Back in the old days when we used to run seminars, we were in person, we had to travel around a fair bit. And what that meant was that we'd have to hire big venues, we'd have to pay deposits and commit to that, not knowing if our marketing was going to be successful or not. And of course, carrying that risk. And we'd get there, we never knew how many people were going to turn up. And, there was a lot of travel involved. There was accommodation and flights. And, it was quite an expensive way to promote our business. In the last couple of years in particular, we've seen a real growth in webinars and online trainings. And I know that for some people, they're just sick and tired of seeing Zoom meetings. For others, it is the best way to do business. Well, let me tell you that when it comes to generating leads, webinars work for me every single time I run a webinar. I generate good quality leads, and I'm going to share with you today exactly how I go about doing that. So, if you're wondering about what a webinar is or how you go about running one, there's several different platforms that you can use. I'm not going to go into too much detail of the technology today. I use Zoom. I've upgraded to the webinar account. I used to use GoToWebinar, which is part of the GoToMeeting platform. Once again, you have to upgrade for that. But you can use free things like YouTube or Facebook Live like this. There's a lot of different options out there that you can use when it comes to streaming a webinar, and it just depends on how it is you want to do it. But you can definitely take registrations and then shoot people a link to a Facebook Live or even a private YouTube live stream, and that way you can just host them for free on one of those platforms if that's what you want to do. One of the downsides of that is you get less sort of data and less control over things like reminder emails and approving people in, etc. So I suggest if you can do it, upgrade to the Zoom webinar account, and that's probably the best way to go. I don't get anything from Zoom for saying that, but it's a great option when it comes to running webinars. All right, so what are you going to run your webinar about? That's probably the most common question I ever get is, well, what am I going to present? Because a lot of people aren't sure what they should be presenting when it comes to presenting a webinar. The first thing to do is to pick a problem that you solve out of all the things that you do. Just think about what's the main problem that your prospects or customers are having and pick that problem to be able to do a training on. And make sure you're comfortable on presenting it as well, because it's going to come across. If you're comfortable presenting, you're going to make sure that your webinar is going to be much more impactful and enjoyable and engaging. And that's really the key, is engagement. If you're going to do a 1 hour long webinar, you can tell how engaging you are as to how many people are left at the end of that 1 hour. If you've got, if you start with 20 and you end up with one, well, then you've got a huge problem and you need to work on your engagement. So pick a problem that you can solve and make sure that you're really, you are comfortable presenting to help people with fixing that problem or solving that problem. So you do a training. Now, it's always important to create a slide deck that can reinforce your message, because if all it is a talking head for 1 hour, you're going to find that you're always going to be better off if you can reinforce it with images. So what I suggest you do is you put a bit of a slide deck together. My tip is at least one slide per minute that you're going to be presenting. Now, this sounds like a lot of slides, but instead of having a slide with 5 bullet points on it, have 5 slides that you use over 1 minute, so 20 seconds each. People are used to seeing moving pictures, and so when you're doing a webinar, the more the screen can change with new pictures, the more likely people are going to stay engaged. I'll also say what's really important is don't put too much onto one slide. I usually just put 1 or 2 words and that is it. And then I reinforce it with a really good high quality image. And then that is all you need for one particular slide. The other thing I find works really well with the Zoom webinar feature is they've got a feature where you can actually embed your PowerPoint and you can put yourself across the top of it like a green screen. So they see your PowerPoint behind you just as if you were presenting on stage. And that's quite a powerful way to do it. So, when you create your slide deck, make sure you leave room for yourself to be superimposed on the bottom right-hand corner. And then you can use that feature as well. Works really well. Now, on that point, don't do death by PowerPoint. So if you are going to put a PowerPoint together, make sure it's not super boring. And like I said, 1 word per slide, really good, impactful images. Make sure you're moving through it nice and fast. And like I said, 1 slide at least per minute. I try and do 2 slides per minute minimum. So if I'm doing a 60-minute webinar, I'll have 120 slides is my target. Don't always get there, but that's what I like to do. The fourth one is good audio is like super, super important. If you really want to make sure that people are engaged and not distracted, you have to have good audio. So grab yourself a good microphone. This one here is the Rode. I think it's called the Podcaster, Procaster, something like that. It's a USB microphone, plugs into the back of the computer, plug and play, very, very easy. But it's a very good quality dynamic microphone. There could be a lot of noise going on outside my office here, my home office, and this won't pick it up. Okay, so it's very directional, and it means that your audio quality is really good. So don't rely on webcam audio. Don't rely on computer audio. Make sure you've got a good quality good computer USB microphone. That's good quality that you can plug in and that you can make sure you're, because audio is just as important as video. Now, on that note, I'm using the latest Logitech webcam HD. I would suggest you make sure you've just got the latest HD webcam as well. If you're going to be bringing yourself into people's computers live, good audio, good video is going to make sure that you get there. But good audio is more important than good video, just so I like to really reiterate that. Fifth one is to make sure you ask a lot of questions and run polls if you're comfortable doing that. I don't do the polls very often. I'm more, I like to use the questions to get engagement, get people putting their answers in the chat box. And I find that works really well. So if you want to keep your audience engaged, make sure that they're listening and that they're not getting distracted by other things on their computer, then ask questions and get them to type answers in the chat box. I do it all the time and it works gangbusters. It's probably my most favorite way of doing things. My sixth tip for you is to have a really clear call to action. Now, what that means is that by the end of the webinar, you need to be very clear about what the next steps are for the people that are there if they've enjoyed it. Now, I always start my webinars by letting people know that I'm not going to be one of those presenters that does the weird, awkward 10-minute offer at the end. Because I don't like that myself, and I want people to be comfortable to know that they're there for a really good, valuable training. Okay, so I say to people at the beginning, I say, just so you know, heads up, I'm not going to give you any sales pitch at the end of this. However, what I will do is I will give you the opportunity to talk with me further if you feel like you might need my help with something that we cover today. And so at the end of every single webinar that I run, typically I'll have one of two things. I'll either have an offer to buy something at a ridiculously reduced rate to get people that are interested to buy from me, or the second thing, and this is the most popular thing that I do, is I'll have a link to my calendar for people to book in a 15-minute call with me. I call it a discovery call or a brainstorm session. And that allows people who are interested to then book that call with me, and then I can continue that human-to-human conversation, and that leads to a lot of sales. So, make sure you've got a very clear call to action. If you run your webinar and you don't have a clear call to action at the end, where you just go, here's my email address, contact me if you want more info, for example, that's a bit too wishy-washy. Make it really clear and say something like, if you found today's information really powerful and you feel like there may be something that we can do to help you get XYZ results in your circumstances, then here's a link. You use this link, book in my calendar right now. Limited spots available, book in right now. And so what that does is it books people into your diary, and then you can start that conversation. All right, my seventh tip for you is to make sure you record your webinar. Hit the little record button, record it locally on your computer. You can then upload it later to Facebook or to a platform like YouTube or Wistia, and you can use that content over and over again. And this is one of the beautiful things about webinars. I've actually presented a webinar to absolutely nobody before, and what that allows me to do is to record my webinar and then upload it onto different platforms to use it as a promotional piece. You can also then cut it up into smaller videos that you can also use for syndicating your content, sending it out to your database, putting it, getting it transcribed, making it into blog posts. You can use it as part of your sales process. Having these videos is great. Good evergreen content. Now, I'll just wrap up by saying that running your own webinars, as scary as it can be, is a great way for you to build your own credibility and authority. It will build your database. It's a fantastic lead magnet. And of course, it is a great lead generator. All right, so I hope you found those 7 tips helpful. Of course, if you want any further help in your business, then down below in the comments, there'll be a link to book a discovery call with me to see how I can go about helping you get your marketing plan together to generate more leads to grow your business. All right, take care.